Hello and welcome to today's session of Inspire Interactives. Inspire is a digital magazine launched by All India Professionals Congress, the AIPC, and is available on its official website. AIPC is a department of the Indian National Congress that brings together professionals from all walks of life and stands committed to the tenets of diversity, inclusivity, and equality. The Inspire magazine includes interviews, articles, and features carefully compiled from varied sources, focusing on areas of common concern. Inspire Interactives is the audiovisual arm of our digital outreach. Here, we will be talking to change makers, thought influencers, policy makers, AIPC fellows, and indeed, non-fellows. In short, anyone and everyone who has a particular perspective to share on a public platform and nurtures a desire to be heard, Inspire Interactives is here for you. I am Dr. Vandana R. Singh, Editor-in-Chief of Inspire. We have here with us today, Mario de Penha. A very warm welcome to you, Mario, on Inspire Interactives. So happy that you're—
Hello, Vandana ji.
Hello.
Thank you for having me.
A brief introduction for our viewers. Mario is a queer historian and activist. He was educated at St. Xavier's in Mumbai and then moved on to join Jawaharlal Nehru University, the JNU in New Delhi. At JNU, he co-founded Anjuman, Delhi's first queer student collective. He has been active in queer organizing for the last 20 years now, and now leads AIPC Maharashtra's Committee for LGBTQIA+ affairs. Currently, Mario is writing a PhD at Rutgers University, New Jersey. His research is on an unusual topic, the history of the Hijras in the Maratha Empire in the 18th century. Mario, wow.
Thank you, Vandana ji, and thank you so much again for having me on the podcast. It's a pleasure.
Thank you for being here. But first things first, we at AIPC, as you know, are a bunch of professionals. And so we have a special interest in people's professional lives. We are keen to understand what our fellows are doing, and we always like to know a little bit about their personal professional trajectory. And it's always interesting to be in somebody else's shoes and walk around in them for a bit. So to start with, Mario, will you tell us a little bit about your professional life and your early years, and what is it that you do right now? Over to you, Mario.
Thank you, Vandana ji. As you said in your introduction, I am a historian, and I'm currently writing my PhD, which is on the Hijras of the Maratha Empire in the 18th century. Now, it's been a long road coming to this PhD and my professional journey as well. I grew up in Thane, which is a small suburb outside Bombay. It's a city in its own right, but essentially it's a suburb outside Mumbai. And from very humble background, my parents didn't really complete school, so it was a big deal to be educated. And but from a very young age, I always loved history, and I wanted to be an archaeologist. We heard about Mohenjo-daro and Harappa when we were very young, and I was fascinated. I wanted to go on an archaeological dig and discover new things. But I remember my father always telling me that there was no money in this. So you might as well choose something that you'll make a great deal of money at. So I was always in love with history, and I took arts in college. but I was going towards the economics side of the whole thing. But after 2 years of economics, I just didn't have my heart in it. And I thought I would do an MBA, but I really just didn't enjoy any of it. And so then I decided to major in history, and that was a wonderful decision that really set the path forward for me. I'm glad that in spite of their initial hesitation, my family was very supportive of this decision to jump into a field that doesn't make as much money. Most parents or families in India are not, but I'm really grateful that my family gave me that choice at the end, to just do what I love. And I think that's so important. So from there, I went on to a master's at JNU. A professor of mine in St. Xavier's College had told me that if you want to have a great arts education in India, then JNU is the place to be. And I'd never been to Delhi before that, and I had no idea what JNU was, but it was truly an incredible formative experience for me. I remember, I did have relative privilege coming from Mumbai, but I remember meeting people in JNU who may never have seen running water before in their lives. And so it really brought the best of our country's minds. And it was wonderful, being in that group of people. And I was really also thankful for that education, because history is one of the best departments in JNU even today. And afterwards, in your master's in JNU, you are encouraged to write research papers, with primary research that you have done. You go to the archives and you study something that you love again. And I was always very curious about the hijras. And so, Professor Radhika Singh took us to the archives, and she said, you, for example, what would you like to work on? And then we found, files that I could consult. And I was thrilled that this was there in the archives and I could uncover a new story. So that was really the start of, delving into the history of a marginalized community that wasn't always marginalized in the past, but is certainly marginalized today. And then I took that on to my PhD at Rutgers in New Jersey.
Wonderful, wonderful. So since you speak so passionately about JNU, just a quick question. Does all the vilification that is currently going on about JNU, does that bother you?
Only certainly a little bit. I'm very concerned about the money that the government has pulled out of JNU. There is considerably less funding for research now than when this government first came into power. And that can have a significant impact on, on what people study, what people learn about society today, about times in the past, but also on scientific research. And that is extremely worrying for me. Now we know JNU to be, an incredible place where people of all diverse backgrounds come, live together, study. And I really mean it. There are people from very, very humble backgrounds, for whom JNU is a ticket to something better. And I've seen how lives can be transformed. So if a university like that is attacked, certainly, I'm less concerned about, how people on the evening TV shows perceive JNU. There was a ridiculous news item some time ago about so many condoms being found in a JNU trash can. I'm sure you remember that.
Yes.
I'm less bothered by things like that. I'm more bothered about the money being pulled out, because that can have a real impact on people's lives, on students' lives. And I think this government really, unfortunately, is out to get the brightest minds in India. So that is what I'm more concerned about.
It is an area of real concern, but it is what it is. So interesting. You shared what you studied and how you moved from economics to history, and how it's clearly history is your calling. But during your early years, would you say did you have any experiences that have stayed with you? Any travel, or meeting any people, or certain thought processes? Is there anything that you think has impacted your life in a manner that has shaped you into what you are today, that has brought you to this point where you are pursuing a PhD in an extremely unusual topic? Anything that you feel, anything palpable that you think that might have brought you to this, or you think it's just a journey that seamlessly has brought you to this point where you have thought of this very, very unusual area of study?
No, certainly. I've had some very formative experiences, in my early life that I think slowly and steadily have brought me to where I am today. I began to realize I was queer myself very early on, but I also had, when I was young, friendships with people who later joined the Hijra community. And, if there's something I know, that among the different groups within the queer community, Hijras are one of the most marginalized, even within. So I was always very curious to know more about what the history of this community was, because I had a personal connection with people in it. But I've also always been a great champion of communal harmony, because it's anybody who lives in India can really see how communal violence can, just tear people apart from one another. And I remember in the post Babri Masjid riots in 1992, me and my family were on our annual um, Christmas shopping trip to Bombay. And we were having lunch in a restaurant, and there was a lot of commotion. This was in the Crawford Market area. And there was a lot of commotion, and suddenly the restaurant shutters were pulled down. And I remember just feeling this incredible amount of fear, on a day that was supposed to be so happy, where we would be shopping for our new clothes and, some gifts for Christmas. So that really stayed with me. And then much later in 2000, I was caught again in the middle of an anti-Christian riot in my hometown in Thane. And it was a small riot. I think, I remember being in a public bus and there were two nuns in front of me. And we were going to the station and there was a rock that came hurtling for the window of the bus and people just scrammed out. And I was, I don't look overtly Christians, but the nuns did. And I was so fearful for what might happen to them. And then I walked to the station. It was just a short distance because I was still keen on getting to college. And I remember seeing these young boys with lathis in front of me, just really, really angry and really upset and, breaking rickshaws, breaking buses. And I could not understand what drove people to that kind of insanity.
Yeah.
It really broke my heart. But I was then about to see something that was far worse. I saw that the whole riot, all the violence, was being directed by somebody who I went to the gym with. So this is somebody from my neighborhood, from my social background. And I remember seeing him at the gym after that and never having the courage to confront him about what he was doing. Now, thankfully, there weren't any casualties from that riot, but it was one of the times that I came so close uh, to experiencing that kind of violence. And I just could not understand what drove people to that kind of madness. So, especially, when you live in a country where people live next to each other, you have people of different communities live next to each other. We have a building in which all kinds of diverse people live together. So, what drives people to hate one another? And through history, I've always learned that communal harmony has been the most one of the most strongest things in our past, and even until very recently. Even communities that are marginalized, like the hijras, they work with communal harmony in very interesting ways. So that is something I've always been interested in. These have been my formative experiences. And so I take these to my research and, digging up the past, trying to understand this country is really what a lot of my research is about.
Interesting. And, as you were speaking, I was thinking that, and I may be completely wrong here, but I think the Hijra community, the kind of ostracization that they face it appears to be uh, peculiar to perhaps the Indian subcontinent. I do not know if this sort of thing is prevalent in other parts of the world. I do not know how these children are brought up in other societies, but at least in India, we see that children are uh, put into this slot, if I may say so, and that they are left with no option but to adopt a particular kind of a life. And then when they try to earn a livelihood, we grudge them even that because of the way in which they are trying to earn a livelihood. But somewhere I feel, and that's my personal opinion, that every time you see um, uh, somebody from the Hijra community trying to make two ends meet, somewhere it is a failure of that particular society in which that person is living, that we have not been able to provide them with better means of livelihood, that we have not been able to make it possible for them to earn money through some other means, and this is the only thing that they are left with. I've often thought about how this plays out in other cultures or other parts of the world. I really do not know, but it's something that I think we as a society should really hang our heads in shame about, because there's this whole section of people who are just completely marginalized, and not just marginalized, they are they are, as we know, they are ridiculed, they are shunned, they are you pull your children away if you see somebody walking up the road, and all sorts of things, and we've all experienced this. So apart from the many other social ills that we have around us, I think this is also one. But the sad thing is that very few people really think about them, and very few people really think about in some ways contributing to improving their lives. And that is what makes your research so very important. And I do hope that there are others who are also doing this, or if not doing this, then in the future that they might. I'm quite certain that your research may set off you know, a sort of a trend, and it might trigger people's curiosity to want to know more about the community. So tell me about your research, and how did you zero in on this particular topic, and how easy or difficult it is to find material to work on, and your professors who are supporting you in this. How does this whole thing work out? I'm assuming this is in the faculty of history, right?
It is in the faculty of history. You're right. No, absolutely. I agree with your assessment of where we are as a society, because on the one hand, I think, like some traditional societies, I'm grateful that there is this space, right, of hijras, where people who may feel differently can go, and even if there is marginality there, they can, find some kind of acceptance, find some kind of home that they wouldn't with their natal families. So I'm grateful for that. But having said that, you're absolutely right. In that our society really gives them a very, very uh, a bad rep. We teach our children to
Yeah.
be fearful of them, and without no real there is no real way to understand what they are going through, what their lives are like, etc. So some of my research flows from this desire to know more about what they were like in the past, what the community experienced, and how they've come to where they are today. And it's quite interesting that um, the way we understand hijras today is primarily only through the lens of gender, that their gender is different from yours or mine. But that's not how they were understood, in the past. In the past, gender is just one way, but in the past, they were actually part of groups of, sadhus or fakirs who wandered from place to place and had a religious function, of blessing people. So you may have seen lots of, sadhus or fakirs. Even today, you'll have a fakir in Mumbai who blesses people with peacock feathers and then receives a payment for that. So in that way, there are all these religious beggars that exist in the past, and hijras are really just one community among them. Now, like other people who are monks or nuns, people in monastic orders, hijras are known for doing something different to their bodies. So, you know, there is Yogi Adityanath, who is the chief minister of Uttar Pradesh. He is part of a monastic order called the Nath Sampradaya.
Yeah.
And they are known because they pierce their earlobes and wear a earring around their earlobes. And they're known as kanfatas, the broken ear. So that is something that they, as a monastic order, do to their bodies to note their difference. So in that way, what hijras are doing, which is wearing a sari or wearing bangles, it's just a way of marking difference, on their body as a monastic order. But rewinding a little bit, I work on Maharashtra mostly and the Maratha Empire, and so a lot of my work is in Marathi in a very peculiar 18th century script of Marathi called Modi. Okay, now it's spelled Modi, but it's not Modi, it's Modi. Okay, like a hard D.
Right.
And it's a cursive script of Marathi that allowed officials to note down things fast while the king or the Peshwa was speaking. So a lot of my work is from documents in this script, and it really shows how, like other monks, hijras were just leaving their caste and their families behind and joining a new group of people. Like the word hijra itself, it comes from the Arabic root, hijr, which means to leave your tribe behind. So even the Prophet Muhammad's journey is known as, and the calendar in Islam is known as the Hijri calendar. It's all about that journey. So yes, there are all these different kinds of sadhus and fakirs, and they are all tasked with the job of blessing people. And the king has told them, the Maratha Chhatrapati has told them that you can bless people, and for that blessing, you are allowed to collect a certain amount of money from every household in particular areas that you have been given. So that amount of money sort of works like a tax, right? And so the hijras in a way are, blessing people and collecting a tax or a payment on that blessing. And so really what you see today, where hijras may approach you at a traffic signal and ask for money, it really has a much longer history to it. And it comes from this past where they were, they were given the right by the king to go and collect this money from specific areas, and so, but they also got their power from, being uh, parts of certain kinds of shrines where people of all faiths gathered, right? So whether it is samadhi of somebody, of a Hindu priest or a Hindu saint, or it is the dargah of a Sufi fakir or a Sufi saint, these are the places that you find hijras gathering at, where ordinary people of all faiths come. And so you really begin thinking about the ways in which people's lives and lived experiences brought this kind of communal harmony in the past. It's not, it's Indians know this in our blood. We know what it's like to live in harmony with somebody else. It's actually unnatural for us not
Yeah.
to live, in harmony with each other. So this is how we've always grown up. Even in my neighborhood in Mumbai, in Thane, we have a cross and a temple across the road from each other, and each community knows how to respect
Yes.
religious performances of the other community. So this is who we are as a people. And so, Hijras were doing this work of just blessing people, taking the blessings from the saint to the ordinary people and getting paid for it. And occasionally, unlike the present, there were also Hijras who had lots of land with them. And they would, because they were going from place to place, collecting their dues, they were farming out their land to other people, and already you can see some kind of tension, like people, dominant communities not being happy with the fact that they held all this land and trying to get this land from them. Um, and then when the British come in, they just have no idea about this whole setup, and they just can't understand anything that is outside male and female, and they just see it as something intrinsically um, dodgy or dirty. And they try to find out, because they want to usurp more power, and they want to get more control under them in any way. They try to find out from different groups in India what is the origin of the rights or the privileges that they have. So we all know about, the British going to princes and saying, and Maharajas and saying, you can't adopt a child and continue your line. Sorry, but we're taking over your state from now on. You are not allowed to do that. Or they make excuses and say, oh, you're so corrupt and you're mismanaging your finances, so we're taking over your state. They just want more control. But with smaller communities, what they do is that they ask all these communities to show them the original document under which they have been given a certain right. So
Okay.
with the Hijras, they are asking them, paper dikhao. Basically, show us the document on which the Maratha Chhatrapati has said you can have all this land, or show us a document on which you are allowed to collect money from all these people, during the year. And they're doing this to all the small sadhus, all the small fakirs, and asking them, what is your role? Like, why do you exist? Why do you have this? Why do you have this right? Now, we all are aware of this, of the way, documentation can be used to question people and question their rights, question their privileges. In our own country, this was done very recently,
Yeah.
with the CAA NRC exercise. And so in a way, the origins are all here, with the British saying, kagas dikhao, and the Hijras don't have, unfortunately, because many of these things are just practices that have come down from the ages. And even in the odd occasion when there are documents to be shown, the British just say, "Oh, but this is ridiculous, and we don't accept these documents." And slowly but surely, all the Hijras' rights are taken away from them, and their land is taken away from them. So even the few privileges that they do have, they no longer have. And so when you see them on the margins today, we have to remember that they have been deliberately marginalized. They
Yes.
have been pushed to the margins. It's not that they were always there. They were they were doing a little better than they now are, but they have been pushed over time. And then we have to assess where we as a society, with the hijras who exist today, or with any person who feels that they don't belong in the body that they are given at birth, right? If you are given a male body, but you don't feel like a man, and if you're given a female body, but you don't feel like a woman, what does our society today do to such people? And it is something that we haven't considered, strongly as a society at all. And we really need to. And what I really hope that my research can do is to just say that it was different in the past, right? And we have the ability to be different today. We have the ability to change things because it was changed once before, and we have the ability to make things better. So it really, I hope that the work is a manifesto for, saying that we can do better with this community.
Yeah. So this is amazing. One has learned so much, and it has triggered so many thought processes. Just this last 10 minutes of what you were saying. So one takeaway from this for me is that what you're saying really is that the Hijra community, instead of moving up the social ladder over time, or moving up the economic ladder, let us say, over time, has actually slipped and gone down. And instead of,
Correct.
I mean, the assumption is that with every generation, people do better. But in their case, it has unfortunately been the other way around. And the other point that I would want to underscore here is that, if I understood correctly, you said that when we see hijras begging at the traffic lights and so on, so it's not really begging because, as the common perception is that, oh, they are perfectly able-bodied, and I mean able-bodied in the sense that they can do some manual work and so on. So why do they have to do this? But if I understood correctly, what you're saying is that it is perhaps a ritual, or it is perhaps something that they are expected to do, um, that they must go and beg and therefore fulfill some commandment or something that they are expected to do in this particular sect, if I may use the word. Is that right?
Correct. Correct. And in that way, absolutely. So there is a vocation where begging as a payment for blessings that they give in return is a vocation that has a history in India, and the hijras are the more dominant among the different communities that do this kind of work. There are, of course, many other religious communities that do this kind of work as well. there is in Karnataka, for instance, the Jogappa community, right? That is related to a goddess called Yellamma, and or the Sanskrit name for Yellamma is Renuka, and they do the same work. They also wear saris and bangles. So there are many such communities all across India that are related to very specific shrines, and whether they're samadhis or dargahs, and there it is a religious vocation or a ritual vocation in that way. So that is something that they're fulfilling. But having said that, what was in a way, or maybe more purely a ritual vocation in the past, has now transformed into something that you have to do to to eat at the end of the day. you know as a society, we do not employ transgender people. We do not employ many hijras, and there really aren't enough vocations or enough jobs that are open to this community. And so, in a way, you end up doing this also because it's a need. You need to eat at the end of the day. So it certainly was a ritual vocation to begin with, but it's transformed over time because they have been pushed in this way to the
So I
margins.
suppose rituals become rituals because they fulfill some need, or they are filling
Correct.
some gap. So it's possible that one of the reasons why this may have started in the first place was because they needed to find food. And unfortunately, now over the years, it has come back to that. So
Yeah.
a lot of irony in that itself. So, Mario, you are leading the AIPC Maharashtra's Committee for LGBTQIA plus affairs. So, would you like to tell us a little bit about what is it that the committee does, and what have you done in the recent past, and what are the new innovative things that you might have done as the state's committee?
Well, most recently, I'm very excited to say this. I was unfortunately ill, so I couldn't go. But we raised the rainbow flag, which is the six-colored flag of the queer community, at Congress Bhavan in Pune, along with local, Congress leaders. And I'm very excited to say this because it makes the Congress the first party in India to raise the rainbow flag. And it hasn't been done by any other political party ever before. So it really is an incredible moment. And it happened earlier in September, on the third anniversary of the Supreme Court's verdict of 377. So I think I really hope that we are able to, our mandate really is to bring, progressive people, people in the queer community, and people, with who believe in Congress ideals on the same platform. We really have to begin talking to each other, because I think if we do, we will find that there are lots of shared goals and lots of shared vision for what the future of this country can be.
Yeah, it was an absolutely momentous decision, but what saddens one is how little media coverage it got. Probably
You know,
because of the venue.
it's possible. I agree with you. It's possible, but I told, and I believe this. I think very often the historical impact of the work we do is only seen much, much later down the line.
True.
Because the work all adds up and it may not be appreciated when it's done. But I think many years down the line, people will realize that something significant happened on September the 3rd in Pune on the third anniversary of the Section 377 judgment. And I wish, yes, of course, I wish more people knew about it. But we don't have the most friendly media in the country, and that's okay.
That's okay.
For now, I think what's important is to do the work, because at some point it will all add up. And I think we will see change in India for sure, for sure.
Yeah, we have already seen a lot of change, but there's a lot more to be done. Lot more to be done.
Oh, absolutely. And we don't want that change to be change in reverse,
Yes.
I mean, the queer community really knows what that's like, because the Delhi High Court judgment happened and then we tasted freedom. And then there was the first Supreme Court judgment, which took us back. And we said to the world and to this country that we're not going back. We refuse to go back to where we used to be. And I think it's something that we should say in general in all the work we do. We aren't going back. We want progress. Forward is the only place and the only direction we want to go. So I think that's important to keep in mind. We want change, but we also don't want to go back.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Mario, it's been so amazing having this conversation with you. Thank you so much. I mean, I'm just thinking that just at the point where you begin to think that you know it all, you meet someone like you and you realize that, So thank you so very much. I'm so happy that you could take time out and talk to us. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts and ideas. I would love to go on and ask more questions, but we have constraints of time. But we do not have a constraint on how many sessions we can do. So I'll be very happy if we can set up another session at some point of time and you can tell us a little more about your research. I'm really fascinated by it. Maybe you could show us some visuals if you have, if you'd like to share some documentation or anything like that, and we can do another session where we could talk in greater detail about this. Thank you once again, Mario. Thank you very much.
Most certainly. And Vandana ji, Dr. Singh, thank you. It's been a pleasure and a privilege to be speaking to you today. So thank you so much for having me. And I would be happy to speak to you any other time you think right. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And so with that, we come to the end of today's interactive session. On behalf of the Inspire team, I once again thank you, Mario, for taking time out to be here with us today. Thank you, viewers, for being with us in this stimulating journey. If you'd like to share your thoughts and ideas with us, or indeed be part of an interactive session, do reach out to us at inspire@profcongress.in. We look forward to hearing from you. With these words, I close this session. Till next time then, thank you, good luck, and goodbye.